Metal Unit is a side-scrolling story-driven roguelite. The thing is, there's no shortage of fantastic roguelites on the market right now, and to succeed, you need engaging combat and an addictive gameplay loop. In a crowded genre, will Metal Unit entice you to don your mech suit for multiple runs, or will you hang up your gigantic sword early? Like I said in the intro, Metal Unit is a roguelite, and if you're not familiar with the genre, it's all about making as much progress as possible using any gear you can find, and then inevitably dying. Once you do die, you're sent back to the beginning and need to make your way through the levels again. In other words, expect to make some progress, die, and then start back from the beginning numerous times. If you aren't a fan of the genre, there's nothing in this game that will convince you to stick with it. Interestingly, the game's story is separated into different episodes, each one with its own world to explore and progress through. Now, every area is unique, both in terms of appearance and the enemies you'll face, and everything is tied together via a central hub in which you can find various vendors and secrets to discover before you jump into a teleporter and travel to the actual missions. All worlds contain up to 18 levels, with camps spread out evenly and a boss at the end. Levels are randomized, so you can replay each world without always encountering the same levels. As for camps, they act as rest stops where you can sell any items you've picked up but don't need. You can also check on what stock the vendor is offering, craft weapons and equipment, and if you have the necessary items, synthesize random items from what you've got in your inventory. More importantly, you can use camps to rest and refill your health before continuing. There is a risk versus reward dynamic with camps. While you can rest and regain your health, you can also choose to enter hidden bunkers for a chance at some higher quality loot. However, these bunkers sometimes challenge you with enemies and traps, which could further drain your health. Now, you can only choose one or the other, so it's up to you to decide if you want to top up on your health or risk additional damage in exchange for potentially higher tier loot. And speaking of weapons and equipment, there's enough variety to make every playthrough unique. There's also many different types of equipment available for use, so beyond a melee and projectile weapon, you can also equip throwables, support items, armor, and different ultimate abilities. Admittedly, using an ultimate ability is really pretty cool. The focus on Unit 11 and Joanna, as well as the visual effects, are impressive, and they add some weight to what are your most powerful moves. Unfortunately, combat is hit or miss, in the sense that while it's very satisfying to take on and destroy multiple enemies at once, like when you use your ultimate or simply through the perfect swing of your sword, there isn't really any weight to fighting. In my experience, I've also found some enemy types to be extremely passive, to the point where they simply do not react to being slashed in the back. Now don't get me wrong, the combat system isn't bad. You can do great combos, it demands some decent timing to avoid or counter enemy attacks, but really you'll be mashing melee for the most part. And like many other roguelites, you need to be prepared to manage an inventory. As you progress through each world, you'll inevitably find yourself loaded with items. With experience, you'll most likely find a type of loadout that suits your style. So for example, I stuck with swords and fast-firing machine guns while keeping armor that damaged enemies after a successful dodge. But you'll regularly need to dump any superfluous items off at vendors and camps, or use synthesis to craft new items. Just be warned that synthesis does not always work in your favor, and you'll need a bit of luck to get something useful. For example, drop 2 guns in and you'll get some armor. Metal Unit also includes a dash of RPG elements via upgradable abilities. In order to upgrade your abilities, you need crystal cores. Now, as you progress through levels, you'll sometimes come across chests which contain a few of them. Upon death, you'll be rewarded with a number of crystal cores depending on a variety of factors from your playthrough. Of course, the best way to acquire the most cores is by reaching the end of a world and defeating the boss. And this ties into the best part of the game, the bosses. They're generally massive and very resistant to damage. Some are straightforward enough, as in hack away until they die. Others, arguably the most enjoyable ones, implement bullet hell mechanics. They will test your ability to dodge at the right time and get in a few hits before backing off. For the completionists out there, be ready to put a lot of time into Metal Unit. there are tons of secret areas hidden within the game's world and even within the hub world. You can unlock some new suits to wear, though they're seemingly only cosmetic, and things don't end once you finish the main story. You can begin a new game plus, conserving your abilities, and you can also access a hidden area and activate various challenges such as a permadeath mode or even a mode that prevents you from using health potions. If you can complete the game with the challenge active, you'll reap unique rewards. On the weaker side of things, Metal Unit presents itself as a story-driven game, but therein lies a major issue. The game's story is a convoluted mess of overused tropes and melodramatic anime storylines. As Joanna, pilot of M-Unit 11, you're tasked with saving the world from an alien menace coming from above and the rise of monsters from below, all while hunting down your sister who, as it happens, is another mech pilot. And she betrayed humanity by siding with the aliens. All the while, a pseudo-conspiracy is brewing back at base as your enigmatic leader, known only as Master, is clearly hiding something from you. The story plays out via what are some of the longest, most verbose cutscenes in recent video game history. Not quite Metal Gear Solid in length, but enough to become frustrating. So be prepared to read a lot of expository dialogue, or simply hold down the button to skip. And this might seem like a minor inconvenience, like I'm nitpicking, but the impact of pulling a player out of an otherwise action-packed game to spew written dialogue for 5 minutes is catastrophic. It doesn't help that you have little to no attachment to any of the characters, especially not the ones introduced for a single cutscene that are never heard from again. So while Metal Unit considers itself a story-driven game, the story actually takes a back seat and the cutscenes can actually hinder your enjoyment at times. Overall, Metal Unit is a decent entry in the roguelite genre. While it doesn't reinvent the wheel, it ticks all the boxes for an enjoyable experience and adds some RPG elements via ability customization into the mix. There's also a whole lot of content to keep you occupied once you finish the campaign, but the narrative is disappointing and needlessly complex. But let's be honest, the story likely isn't why you'd play the game.